We were talking about the guys who've won the last 3 years at Daytona in the Daytona 500, Austin Cindric, Michael McDowell, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Surprises? Maybe, but not shocking, John, because all three of those guys have been good on superspeedway races. So when people say it's a wild card race, anybody can win this thing. Well, yeah, to some extent that's true, but I don't know that I don't know that the stats really back this up, for lack of a better term, because the guys that have won this have proven to be pretty good in this type of racing.
Well, and also, you look at it, there's the opportunity out there for the underdog to win. But when you do look at the vast history of it, yeah, they're the underdogs here and there. But, look at the Denny Hamlin wins. Look at some of the guys that have been up there over the years, the normal suspects that have won. That real big underdog, that real big surprise, it happens, and it gets a lot of attention when it happens. But then again, you don't see it every year. You don't see it all the time. We see the big teams up there. We see the Hendrick Motorsports, the Joe Gibbs cars. But if you guys, when we're talking about this, I wanted to glance in really quickly on what some of the odds makers are talking about right now. And your favorite going in, guys, as we thought, is Brad Keselowski at plus 1,100. But Blaney, Elliott, Hamlin, and Chris Buescher as well, all plus 1,100. We talked about that a second ago in terms of wagering, where at a normal race you would be like plus 350, plus 450. It tells you how difficult this thing is to predict. Some of the best guys out there that have won before: Christopher Bell plus 2,000, Austin Cindric plus 2,500. This odds making thing tells you really that the opportunity is out there, but at the same time, the money and the odds makers are still pointing towards some of the normal suspects.
And the thing is, Jeff, you and I were talking during the break, is you look at this, would you consider it a surprise if Kyle Larson wins the Daytona 500? No. I wouldn't.
He's a champion, and he wins at a lot of places. I mean,
but he's never finished better than sixth in any race, in any points-paying race at Daytona. It
just tells you've got to have a lot of things line up. You got to have, some racing luck, but you've got to have people who want to help you win. I think if you go back and you really will look at guys who've been successful and went to victory lane there, you can somewhere through the course of that race, especially late in the race, find somebody who became a friend or a teammate that helped solidify that last lap position that gave you the win.
Well, I think we saw it a couple years ago, JR, with, Logano and Keselowski battling for the lead, took each other out, and it opened the door for McDowell.
Yeah, exactly. And then there was, the brilliant work that was done with Kevin Harvick and Mark Martin that year that happened. And again, the beautiful thing about this is we look at this race, you go 500 miles at close to 200 miles an hour, and this thing can be decided by the width of a bumper or the distance of a quarter panel. And that's what's so cool about this race. And again, when you have people that are up there at the beginning, I remember, and Jeff and Brett, you guys remember this too, the heartbreak of Johnny Benson. Remember Johnny Benson with the unmarked car was out there, and with an opportunity, he got shuffled out. David Reagan made a move that shuffled him out, that I'm sure those guys have replayed that over and over again. And then again, you have the opportunity to be out there and to make the move the right way. But man, when you have some of these wily veterans behind you, like the move that Kevin Harvick made that one particular year, we've seen it year in and year out that somebody can actually do that. And that's why the beautiful thing about this, again, you go that 500, even 500 plus miles, ask Kyle Busch about that, and you can be leading in turn 4 and not win the Daytona 500.
How difficult a race is this for a crew chief, Jeff? Because I would say of all the races that you run during the course of a year, the super speedway races are the ones you have the least control over. You're basically a spectator, right?
Oh, yeah. You are a spectator. There's no doubt about that, because the only time you really can talk to your driver is in a caution period and or right in front of you coming through the tri-oval. And usually they got their hands pretty full there, and you got to be careful that you're not trying to talk when the spotter needs to be talking. And so, for that reason alone, you're quite a bit the spectator. And I want to bring in the fact that I mentioned the spotters. You got to hope that, between practice sessions and everything else, and maybe just the fact you've been together a while, that you've got a guy that you got confidence in. And when he says clear high, you go high because you got trust there. If he hesitates and then says go high, you may have the big one. All of a sudden you're tore up. So that alone brings me to another point: is how many guys going into this year have got different spotters. If you remember, there was a little bit of shuffling. The guy who was with Ryan Blaney is no longer with Ryan Blaney. And so there's several teams that are finding themselves in that situation. Chase Elliott. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people who've been making moves with spotters, and you say, why? Well, some of it was because of dollars and cents. Another was because, they didn't really have the chemistry they needed. So a guy that we were discussing during the break, Ryan Blaney, different spotter. How long is it going to take for them to get warm and fuzzy? And the fact that he's got good numbers coming into the 500. How many times has he finished second?
Twice.
I mean, that's getting pretty darn close to making the sealing the deal. Not a lot of guys can say that. So this year could be a really bizarre year. And we touched on it earlier. To me, the biggest shock could wind up being Josh Berry and the 4 winning the 500. And it may be coming because now Ford has got a different nose. Maybe that helps a little bit. Maybe we got different people communicating with Josh Berry in a position he hasn't been in yet, and they did it better than anybody else. Or it could have been because of one of the principal owners, Tony Stewart, giving everybody a pep talk during the offseason. I don't know.
Jeff, if you are a wagerer, if you are a betting person, and you were to throw $100 down on Josh Berry to win the Daytona 500, you would come home with $4,000.
Well, if you're going to come home with $4,000, why can't we make that $400,000?
Okay, yeah, if you're that confident.
Well, if you got that much to wager, I mean,
yeah. Hey, and why not, guys? Why not? Who didn't?
You haven't heard
there
about
was
the budget
not
for this show.
Hey, but Brett, what was pretty cool was the 4 major sports books that are out there. No one bet on Michael McDowell the year he won the Daytona 500. 2 years ago, right?
Yeah.
When he won the Daytona 500, there was not one single wager made on him in any of the major 4 sports books. Nowadays, I think that's going to be a little bit different. I think if anybody upsets the apple cart, I think there will be a wager made on just about anybody that is out there running. But then again, that's the beauty about this is you go way back in this field. Boy, I remember there were some people that told me about wagers they had made on Ward Burton back in 2003 or 2 or 3. Well, one of those 2. Early 2000s. Ward Burton, that was a huge payday for somebody.
Absolutely. That's the way it works. That's why it's called gambling.